On the 1st of September 1939, Germany and the Soviet Union launched a joint invasion on Poland on the agreement they would split the land. Being allies with Poland, Britain, and France were forced to step in and declare war on Germany. One of the most notable battles was an 18-hour-long resistance between the SS and 40 soldiers based at a post office in the town of Gdansk, Poland. Lieutenant Konrad Guderski and his men fought valiantly against the oncoming waves of Nazis until only 4 of them remained. Guderski gave his final orders to the remaining 3 soldiers to save themselves and leave him in the building they escaped to. In an attempt to cut off German supplies, Britain mined the sea around the Norwegian coast, destroying German cargo ships in the process. In the same year, the Siege of Malta, a 2.5-year campaign, was started by the Allies with hope to control the strategic position between Europe and Africa. On the 26th of May, one of the biggest operations of the war took place, Operation Dynamo. The Allies made a last stand at Dunkirk after the German blitzkrieg punched through the British lines. Over the course of 9 days, ships continuously traveled back and forth across the English Channel evacuating soldiers. Over 330,000 soldiers were rescued. The Germans easily swept through the rest of France and split it into Vichy France and occupied France. In the last remaining months of the year, the Allies, along with the French colonies, ran various campaigns to push Germany and Italy out of Africa. These would continue for 3 years. On the 7th of December, Japan would launch a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. It was part of a plan to weaken the Americans' navy and control the South Pacific. Other fierce battles took place on islands such as Guam and Wake Island. Although many ships were sunk, the oil reserves and repair warehouses were left untouched. This event caused the USA to declare war on Japan and supply Britain with weapons and food. Germany later declared war on the USA, and U-boats were sent to intercept American ships. Thanks to the help of codebreakers such as Alan Turing, the Enigma code was deciphered, and U-boats became less of a problem. Many other campaigns in Eastern Asia started, backing up the status of World War. One of the deadliest operations was Operation Barbarossa. As well as being a complete betrayal on the Soviet Union, this was the biggest ground invasion in history, with approximately 4 million Axis troops. The Axis forces pushed as far as the outskirts of Moscow, but unable to push through the capital. Enter the Battle of Moscow. The brave efforts of the Red Army held the Germans off for the full 3-month siege, ultimately ending in a Soviet victory. However, the Soviet army suffered heavy losses of 1.3 million. In one battle, they had more people dead, wounded, or captured than the USA and UK. The operation started on June 22nd and was put to a halt on the 5th of December due to the cold Russian winter. This gave the Soviets time to move their factories and boost their weaponry and air force. Special Siberian forces trained to fight in the snow helped push back the Germans approximately 250 kilometers. One of the most crucial 5 days on the Pacific Front was the Battle of Midway. This was a 5-day-long engagement between the Japanese and American Navy at the Midway Atoll. This naval battle changed the course of the war for the Americans by heavily weakening the Japanese Navy and gaining a strong advantage point for liberating captured Allied territories. Another demonstration of success from the Allies came from the Guadalcanal campaign. A 4-month battle on the island of Guadalcanal in the British Solomon Islands, with the U.S. Marines fighting with the South Pacific Commonwealth countries, ultimately forcing the Japanese to withdraw all troops. The victories didn't stop there. The Allies went on to drive the Japanese out of many more islands and territories. Over in Europe, the bloodiest battle of the war commenced, the Battle of Stalingrad. With large amounts of deaths and casualties from previous battles, the Germans used this as an opportunity to surround the Red Army in the Russian city of Stalingrad. The siege lasted 6 months, eventually ending with a Soviet win pushing the Germans out of the north, south, and the whole of the Soviet Union. 1943 was one of the strongest years for the Allies, as they claimed many victories over the 12 months. For a start, the Germans were finally defeated in Stalingrad and were forced to retreat out of Soviet Russia entirely. Down in Africa, the Allies managed to take the whole of the continent, giving them the upper hand for attacking the Axis from the south. That was exactly what they did. July 3rd marked the start of the Battle of Sicily. This was a 1-month fight against the Nazis for the island of Sicily, just off the coast of Italy. On the 3rd of September, the Allies launched an amphibious attack on mainland Italy from northern Africa. To the surprise of many, the Italian people welcomed the invaders with open arms, as many had relatives living in the USA. There would be no punishment for assisting them, as Benito Mussolini, the Italian fascist leader, was voted out of power and thrown into jail. However, Hitler saw this coming and sent troops into Italy to hold back the Allies. A month later, the Italian government declared war on Germany. To this day, 1944 is one of the most iconic years in the 1900s. On the 6th of June, the biggest amphibious invasion in history took place. Operation Overlord, codenamed D-Day. 133,000 troops from the Commonwealth and their allies landed on the beaches of Normandy. The Allies landed on 5 beaches. The Americans landed on Omaha and Utah. The British took Gold and Sword, while the Canadians landed on Juno. Omaha was notoriously the bloodiest of the 5. By the 30th of June, over 850,000 men, 148,000 vehicles, and 570,000 tons of supplies had been deployed to the forces in France. The operation came to a close on the 30th of August. The duration could have possibly been longer if the British didn't trick the Germans into thinking they would launch from Dover with fake tanks. After the Allies liberated France, Operation Market Garden was launched. Over 10,000 men were deployed over the Netherlands with the goal of capturing 5 bridges in order to lead a convoy of artillery, tanks, and supplies around the heavily armed Germany-France border. The first 4 bridges were successfully captured, but the forces at the Arnhem Bridge, led by Lieutenant Colonel John Frost, held their ground for 9 days. They eventually were forced into surrendering due to a shortage of ammunition, food, and men. In the closing days of World War II, one of the strangest battles in history took place. The Battle of Itter Castle. Captain Jack Lee and his men joined forces with German soldiers, part of the Austrian resistance against the Nazis. Their mission: defend French VIPs, prisoners within Itter Castle from the SS. Despite orders to stay hidden, the Frenchmen didn't hold back from joining in the fight. Unfortunately, this resulted in a death. Gangl, the German major, not willing to lose a prisoner, took a bullet from a sniper. One of the VIPs, John Baratra, an ex-tennis player, volunteered himself to disguise as an Austrian peasant and get reinforcements. Jack Lee reluctantly agreed to the offer. Reinforcements soon arrived, ending the pound of artillery shells against the castle walls. 2 days later, Germany surrendered, marking the end of the war in Europe. However, the engagements in the Pacific were not over yet. On the 6th of August, the first atomic bomb was dropped on the city of Hiroshima in Japan, bringing it to nothing but rubble. The next target, Nagasaki. 3 days later, Nagasaki too was reduced to debris. On the 2nd of September 1945, Japan surrendered to the United States of America, officially marking the end of World War II. "79 years on, the brave and valiant men who fought in this bloodbath are still remembered today for their heroic acts.